From Norse mythology come 6 terrifying creatures, each destined for Ragnarok, the cataclysmic final battle where gods and monsters clash until existence itself crumbles. To Viking warriors who carved these legends in stone, they weren't just stories, they were living prophecies. These 6 nightmarish beasts didn't terrorize mortals. They struck fear into the hearts of gods themselves. Guarding the entrance to the land of the dead is a colossal, bloodied dog whose howl signals the end of the world. This is Garmr, the hellhound guarding the entrance to Hell's realm, where souls go upon death. Garmr is not your average watchdog, though. When this dog howls, then Ragnarok officially begins. His voice actually announces to the world that the world has ended. In the last battle, Garmr will also break free of his chains and enter the battle. He'll engage Tyr, the one-armed god who lost a hand to having been bitten by Fenrir. The hound and the god will slay each other in combat. It's somewhat sweet retribution. Tyr lost a hand to one giant wolf, and he is slain by another. All of the scary dogs in movies, literature, and television since then descend from the concept of Garmr. Fluffy, the 3-headed dog from Harry Potter, hellhounds on TV's Supernatural, they all find their roots in the first hellhound guarding the gate of death. When Garmr howls, he doesn't merely foretell death. He actually summons up dead men to come and fight in the wars at the end of the world. In Norse mythology, it is the corpses themselves who go to war at the end of the world. Talking about dogs, or better said wolves, this next creature has made quite the name for himself. There was once a wolf who was so big that when he was about to open his mouth, his lower jaw touched the ground and his upper jaw touched the clouds. This is Fenrir, named Swamp Dweller. He was the offspring of the god of mischief Loki and a giantess named Angerboda. But Fenrir was not only large, he was growing larger by the day. The gods watched in fear as this wolf pup developed into a monster. This is where the legend becomes interesting. The gods came to realize that Fenrir would eventually kill Odin, the leader of all the gods. So they attempted to prevent this from occurring. But here is the twist. By trying to prevent their destiny, they brought it upon themselves. The gods tricked Fenrir into putting on magical bonds called Gleipnir. They were constructed out of things impossible to find, such as the sound a cat makes when it is moving or the mountain roots. Fenrir did not trust them, and he told them, "I'll just let you bind me up if one of you puts his hand in my mouth first." The heroic god Tyr stepped forward and placed his hand in Fenrir's gigantic jaws. When Fenrir realized he had been deceived and couldn't break free from the chains, he clamped his jaws shut and ripped off Tyr's hand. But it is said that the prophecy is that during Ragnarok, the end of the world, Fenrir will escape those bonds and swallow Odin entire. Films like Marvel's Thor, the TV series Vikings, and games like God of War and Assassin's Creed Valhalla all feature this wolf. But none can truly capture how unbelievably terrifying Fenrir was to the original Vikings. And get this, Fenrir had brothers who were even more terrifying. Below in the ocean, there lives a snake, so enormous that its body goes around the whole world. When he turns, mighty storms rock the ocean. When he is enraged, earthquakes rend the earth asunder. This is Jormungandr, or the world serpent. He is the brother of Fenrir, another son of Loki, who grew to a gigantic size. The Vikings believed this huge snake was coiled around their world on the ocean floor, its tail in its mouth like a living ring. If Jormungandr ever released his tail, the Vikings believed the entire world would collapse and drift away into nothing. Thor, the thunder god, despised this snake and attempted to grab him numerous times. They made this fishing adventure so legendary that Viking craftsmen etched the tail onto massive stone pillars throughout Europe. These were not legends. They were so vital that men spent months carving them into solid stone. so that future generations would never be able to forget them. The legend predicts that Thor and Jormungandr will engage in a fatal duel during the ultimate battle of Ragnarok. Thor will slay the giant serpent with his hammer, yet the venom of the snake is so deadly that 9 steps away from where he is bitten, Thor too will perish. The video game God of War perfectly captures this serpent. Players can actually walk right through his mouth. That's not the game designers being creative. That's exactly how the original Viking myths described him. But while the above serpent kills with poison, our next beast has something even worse: raw fire. Below the roots of Yggdrasil, the great tree that's keeping all of existence intact, a dragon constantly gnaws at the roots in ceaseless hunger. This is Nidhoggr, the striker with curses, or corpse tearer. This old dragon isn't just nibbling on a tree, he's working systematically to undermine the foundation that's keeping all of existence from falling apart. Every time he bites down, he's eroding the cosmic tree. Nidhoggr is found in a repulsive place named the Shore of Corpses, where he eats the flesh of murderers, liars, and oath breakers. But his real occupation is worse than the destruction of the universe, gradually piece by piece, root by root. What's beautiful about this myth is that this devastation is slow and patient. Where every other animal slays immediately at Ragnarok, Nidhoggr is rot itself, how things erode with time, regardless of its strength. All dragons today, in books, video games, and films, are thanks to Nidhoggr. Dragons in Final Fantasy games or World of Warcraft all share this first conception of a great serpent that ruins the very source of life. While this dragon ruins from below, in the upper air above, 2 wolves are pursuing the very essence of light and heat. Daily, the sun hurries through the skies, fleeing for its life from some force with razor fineness of tooth and hunger, never to be satisfied. They are Skoll and Hati, 2 gigantic wolves whose names translate to the one who mocks and the one who hates. Skoll chases the sun during the day, and his brother Hati chases the moon during the night. They appear in the most ancient Viking poetry as being a part of an endless pursuit throughout the heavens. The Vikings employed these wolves to provide them with an explanation for why the sun and moon might occasionally be missing from the sky. When there was an eclipse, when the sun or moon darkened, it was a sign that the wolves had temporarily caught up with what they were pursuing. But, as predicted in the prophecies, at Ragnarok, Skoll and Hati will actually catch up on their pursuits. They'll snatch and devour the sun and the moon, and the earth will stay in total darkness forever. Imagine trying to visualize how terrifying this would have been to the Vikings. Every time an eclipse occurred, they were essentially getting a peek behind the curtain of the end of the world. Every time there was unexpected darkness, it meant that these celestial beasts were closer to achieving their plan. These are the children of Fenrir, making the god killer's children literally devour light and heat. Winter shall never end, and everyone shall be trapped in darkness when Skoll and Hati ultimately prevail. We now know eclipses are a result of planetary movement, but the Vikings understood something deeper, that light is always under siege by dark forces that never relent in their chase. When all the gods are dead, and all the monsters are the victors of their own wars, there shall be a last giant standing in the ruins with a fiery sword. This is Surtr, the giant of fire who comes and puts an end to it all. He is first mentioned in the oldest Viking texts, wielding a burning sword brighter than the sun itself. Whereas other monsters kill one god after another, Surtr incinerates the entire universe. When all of the battling is done during Ragnarok, Surtr will lift his flame sword and ignite every one of the 9 worlds. All the trees, all the mountains, all the worlds shall burn to dust. His sword doesn't merely cut, it dissolves life. The Vikings weren't making this up randomly. They were in Iceland, where volcanoes erupted randomly and burned entire towns to the ground overnight. They witnessed mountains blow their tops and spew out molten fire that consumed everything for miles. Surtr is the shape of that worst-case scenario of uncontrolled fire that the Vikings knew was smoldering under their feet at all times. The film Thor Ragnarok, within the Marvel Universe, depicts Surtr as a horned, crowned fire demon. That's close to what the Viking myths originally pictured him as, a fire-tongued giant of the mountains whose sword spews forth blazing fire. None of the end-time monsters is simply a destroyer, however. Some are protectors of the most terrorized locations in the cosmos. 6 monsters. 6 ways the world comes to an end. They were all written down in texts more than 700 years old, founded on tales hundreds of years older. The Vikings did not invent these monsters to amuse themselves. They were warnings. They were talking about the actual forces that bring civilizations down. Power uncontrolled, natural disaster, the collapse of society, gradual decline, darkness, and death itself. But see this, these beasts are carved on stone monuments throughout Europe. They were sewn onto tapestries, immortalized in poems, and told to so many generations. If they were simply made-up tales, why in the world do there have to be myths across cultures throughout the globe, telling the same sorts of monster stories? Why are we continuing to produce movies, video games, and books about them today? Maybe the question is not so much whether these monsters ever did exist a very long time ago. Maybe the question is whether they do exist out there somewhere, biding their time until it's the right time to emerge again.